We are live. Matt, thanks for joining. Really looking forward to this conversation. Everybody watching this, my name is Robbie Martin. I work professionally for an open source application security company called Sonatype. But what this series, and I'm going to pull the guests for names, Tech Talks and 10, but what these are going to be and what the mission is to give you access to thought leaders within the IT, software development, find the fintech spaces for quick hitting conversations. These aren't going to be hour and 2 hour long monologue podcasts. So I'm going to do my best to deliver the best content and the best conversations possible. But my piece of this is going to be solely moderation. I'm going to let you talk to the smartest people you can for as long as we're able to. And guest number one in this series is Mr. Matt Keadle from Withum. So Matt, thanks for joining.
Hey, Robbie, thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here today. My name's Matt. I'm a CPA from the DC and Baltimore area. I've been involved in the public accounting space for around 7 years now, primarily in the audits of not-for-profits, labor unions, and benefit plans. But one of my real passions is connecting the worlds of analytics and data that involves coders and developers and connecting them with the traditional old-fashioned CPAs, because that's how we're going to bring my industry forward, and just the public accounting industry, but just accounting in general. So I'm really excited to talk about a few different topics today. Yeah, back to you.
Likewise, Matt. And I remember when I first started sourcing some guests, Matt and I had connected from my previous life in the payroll and finance space with ADP. And he reached out. He's like, I would love to be a guest on this. I've got some cool stuff to talk about. And my first thought was, I was like, CPAs, it's kind of a legacy industry. I'm not really exposed to the technical side of it and what firms might be up to. And then once we talked and connected last week, it really opened my eyes to just how much Withum especially is doing from a data analytics, from an in-house development perspective, to not only gain efficiencies within the firm, but drive top talent and increase recruitment efforts across firms. So those are the couple of things I was excited to chat with you about today. But just to kick things off and level set, why don't you give us a little bit of a breakdown in terms of what your data analytics team is doing, what they're working on, and who makes it up?
Yeah, definitely. Overall, with them, one thing that you're going to find out is we have a culture of innovation. We are not stuck in the way that we did it last year. Sally is what it's called in the industry, same as last year. That's not what we're about. We're about trying new things, bringing new ideas into the mix, and just bringing new people on and just asking them, what do you want to do differently this year, and what do you want to try? So the one way we do that is through our internal analytics team, and what that is a team of about 4 or 5 full-time data analytics people. These are coders, developers with real knowledge, focusing on the languages of R, Python, ACL software. These guys are legit, and they know how to work with a lot of different languages. And we also use about 20 to 30 auditors that also dabble in analytics. We teach them the basic skills of coding and how to set up algorithms to perform different accounting related functions to help automate the audit process. That's the number one thing that we focus on. How can we automate the basic tasks of the audit process? And the main 2 things we do are extracting large GL details in Excel and really bringing out the high risk data points that may contain fraud, that really the areas that we really want the auditor to focus their attention on. Because as an auditor, anyone else who is in public accounting knows your time is limited. You're stretched between a lot of different clients. So we want you to focus on the highest risk areas within that audit. So what our team does is, using some different algorithms, is we take large GL details and we extract them out, get the high risk data points. And we also do that for benefit plans. We take large PDFs where we need to extract certain numbers for different participants, and we just pull them out automatically for the auditor. So they save a lot of time with data manipulation and just scrolling through PDFs. And that helps us save a lot of time. And, that's one thing that we're really passionate about, just automating everything we can and really having our top talent focus on kind of the areas that require auditor judgment. And that's just an overview of kind of what our data analytics team does.
Yeah, I think that fits in really nicely to one of the core kind of tenets or pillars of most software developers that I talk with is, whether it's in their personal lives or their professional, it's automate everything. Whatever can be automated, do it, because within a business sense, you're saving the firm billable hours that can then be spent on other high value products. You're potentially looking at one person being able to do the job of what might have taken two people in the past, just because of the raw manual data manipulation that you talked about. And then that also provides a better service for your clients. So when you dig into things like this, it's a win-win in terms of who's benefiting from it. You're getting your auditors that are getting cross-skilled into more of the data analytics side. Your customers are getting easier, higher quality deliverables, and then the firm's going to see that realized from a bottom line perspective as well. So really cool stuff. But I think one of the pieces that enables this is that a lot of CPA firms, especially, but a lot of organizations still are very siloed. You may have your development wing over here, your security division on the other side that's just kind of acting as the cops and telling the developers what to do. In the CPA sense, you've got your traditional auditors that may be stuck in their ways a little bit. So for you all, how important is the communication and the collaboration between all of the different stakeholders within the firm?
The communication is everything, Robbie. Um, One of our really great strengths here at Withum is just a really strong line of communication between our full-time analytics team, as well as the volunteer helpers from auditors, and the actual audit teams that are performing the day-to-day audits. There's two main things that firms really need to think about when they're trying to implement analytics in the audit process. That's the what and the how. They need to identify, in terms of the what, they need to identify some key tasks that they would like automated using different coding languages. Like I mentioned before, we focus on the GL details, extracting data from that, and also large PDFs where the auditor needs certain key points of data. The how is kind of using that analytics team to perform those processes and develop algorithms so they can happen automatically. But those tasks need to be communicated effectively and efficiently using on a budget between the audit team and the analytics team consistently. And that's something we really do great as a firm. But for any firm that's interested in looking more into building an analytics team in-house or using out of the box analytics software, you really need to think about how you're going to communicate what needs to be done from the audit team to the analytics team. And obviously what really helps with that is just our culture of innovation and being open to change and trying new things. And lastly, one of the key ways of success of doing this is really focusing on starting small and in really small actionable ways. If you go out of the door trying to think, okay, how am I going to audit every single task of this audit? You're going to fail, you're going to go over budget, and you're never going to get buy-in from your key stakeholders, the audit partners, the senior managers, kind of the people that are really going to give you that go ahead to be successful with this. So what you need to do, and what I've talked about, is just identify key tasks that you would like to become automated. So like I mentioned, those two tasks before, there are some off-the-shelf products that do similar things. So you can definitely look into those, but you also have the opportunity to hire people that have those skills. One of the key skills for young people coming out of college and young CPAs out there is to have somewhat of a coding background. The languages that are really important nowadays are R and Python, and just having a base set of skills and knowledge with that, with what these languages can do for different audit tasks, is a really great skill set that young CPAs need, because that's going to help drive these tasks forward and help us to automate more parts of the audit, thereby, like I said before, allowing more time to be spent with high risk areas, areas that require auditors' judgment, and ultimately that delivers a better product for the client, because they have had more time spent on the key areas in the audit where they need to be. So ultimately the client wins, the investor wins, the stakeholder wins, the firm wins. So it's a really a great situation, but you got to start small. You can't bite off more than you can chew, and you got to do it in a strategic manner and communicate effectively between the analytics team and the traditional audit team. That is the key here.
And I love what you mentioned too about kind of for all you young accountants that may be about to sit for your CPA or are studying, or if you're about to be a new grad coming up in 2022 and beyond, I think you mentioned something really clever and smart and forward looking. Honestly, if you look at from an upskilling yourself perspective, the traditional model of most businesses is changing very fast. The skill sets needed is changing very fast. And I don't, or at least haven't heard of, so I might just be naive to it. You don't hear a lot about accountants focusing also on their more technical side. So I would imagine from a talent perspective, and you hear all the time the war on talent, everybody's looking for top talent. It's also going to be more and more important to differentiate yourself from a kind of run of the mill, more out of the box recent grad or CPA. If you also do have that technology background as you're entering this market where you've seen a lot of layoffs in tech, but the one thing that you don't see is a lot of developers being laid off, a lot of software professionals being laid off. So we can make yourself a lot more sticky by adopting some of these skills that you just mentioned, Matt. And I think that's a good kind of last piece to touch on with the few minutes we have left is it seems like this would also tie into that talent piece, not only for making yourself more attractive as a candidate, but how is Withum looking at this from a talent perspective and looking forward to the future needs of the firm?
Yeah, definitely. So what's the number one thing businesses have struggled with since COVID? And that's the staffing shortage. No one has enough people that they want, and everyone is always trying to hire more and more and more. So, there's two aspects of it. Like you said, there's the young college grad aspect where we want you to have these skills that incorporate some element of data analytics. And a lot of schools are doing that already, and that's great.
Good.
So that's one of the keys too, is to building that resume with not just accounting skills, but with data analytics, coding skills as well, because that's going to make you super attractive to the employer. But to your
Hmm.
question, Robbie, is we at Withum kind of use our analytics department to sell ourselves and to differentiate ourselves from other similar sized CPA firms, because overall that helps us create that culture of innovation. I think when I think about the staffing shortage, there's three main things that young people want out of a career these days, and I think the older generation has a lot of trouble um, picturing that and kind of coming to terms with it, unfortunately. Number one, young people want a meaningful career where they can make a difference and, feel like they're part of something. Number two, young people want a good work-life balance. They want to work hard, but they also want time to travel and start a family and, do all the things that we want to do. And number three, young people want to be on the cutting edge of technology. They don't want to just do the same old thing that the firm did last year. They want to be part of an team that experiments and tries new things and creates new ways of doing things. And that's where the analytics comes in, because we're always looking for new ways of doing things. But we want a team member that has a background with the analytics skills and the technical skills to come right in and be able to help us. So we use that as a selling point for our firm, and that kind of helps us cope with the staffing shortage in terms of selling ourselves in the fact that we are not just a traditional CPA firm that does audit and tax and pushes paper around. So it's a tool that helps us attract top talent from universities, but also kind of experienced hires.
Hmm.
So it's just a great way to separate ourselves.
I love that. I think it's really insightful. Well, like I started off this session with, we're going to get into these topics quick. We're going to take deep dives into each of them, but this is going to be something that's easily digestible. So we'll put a bow on this. Matt, thank you so much for hopping on. This is episode number 1, and really looking forward to keeping in touch with you on this. And maybe we can loop in somebody from the analytics team next to even take a little bit of a deeper dive without giving away kind of the proprietary secret sauce. But Matt, thank you so much for the insights. Looking forward to keeping in touch, man.
Definitely. Thank you so much for having me. In closing, just think about different ways that you can try new things at your firm, and especially do it on a budget, do it in actionable ways. So you get buy-in from the people above you and have a lot of fun doing it and changing the world. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Matt.